Wanna see the most expensive item in Sea of Thieves? Welcome to Athena's Fortune. Otherwise known as the pirate legend hideout, this nifty little area is known to house many an item you can spend your gold on, but none are as useful as the Dark Adventurer sales. You'd be forgiven to think that spending more money on an item does not necessarily make it better, chances are it just makes it more edgy, but in this case, both of these things can be true, because the DA sales feature a unique cutout that vastly improves visibility on both the Brigantine as well as the Galleon. But really, Sea of Thieves is a game with horizontal progression. The whole point of it is to get cosmetics and then show them off. Is it really worth it to keep using the exact same sales because you get a minor advantage in a game that is more about cooperative adventures than competition? Yes. Yes it is. And that's why I want them. All these previous episodes I dedicated solely to the collection of more gold, all of that was in preparation for this one purchase. At least until the captaincy update was announced. You will notice that I do indeed have enough money to buy the DA sales right now, but then I'd be left with no money to spend on captaincy. Which is why Brandon is the one who's gonna buy the sales, allowing me to blow my cash on the ship. But he is still 1,000,000 gold shy, so we got a lot of work to do. You know what isn't a lot of work? Eating healthy with HelloFresh. Wanna experience the joy of cooking delicious meals without any of the hassle? Look no further than HelloFresh. You can choose amongst a crazy variety of different meals every week, including pescatarian or vegetarian options to meet your dietary needs. In the box, you will get not only a bunch of very easy to follow step-by-step recipes, but also pre-portioned ingredients to make your life easier and minimize food waste. Save yourself the trip to the grocery store just to end up with more than you wanted or needed. On the note of which, HelloFresh is also incredibly flexible, allowing you to add more portions to your order if you're expecting guests, or even skip entire weeks if you're going on vacation, or complete your meal with a variety of different add-ons including snacks, appetizers, and desserts. Okay, this next part is not in the talking points, but I myself have been a HelloFresh customer for well over a year for all the reasons I've mentioned above, but also because cooking these recipes every week really helped me build confidence in my cooking ability. I have never once had a meal from HelloFresh that I didn't like, and even when I made small mistakes here and there, the recipes are so foolproof that it still turned out great in the end. So if you want to give them a shot, make sure to visit the link in the description below and use my promo code CliffEats16 for 16 free meals across 7 boxes and 3 free gifts. Thanks to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video, and now, onto our standard programming. Our day began, as many of them do, with us venturing into Chapter 4 of the Pirate's Life Tall Tale to grab supplies. A single one of these runs can net you a combined 100 bombs between the fire and blunder varieties, and since no other crew can join your session here, it's about as safe a time as you can imagine. We felt pretty smug using that trick to stock up on supplies, but when we expected to be spit out under the Sea of Thieves after cancelling the Tall Tale, Rare instead dropped us onto the Sea of the Damned. Wait, what is this? Is our anchor down? What is up? Why are we here instead of like the real world? Yep, we didn't feel very smug after that. No amount of troubleshooting was making a difference. The portal didn't do anything, and we eventually hit an invisible barrier on either end of it. Resetting the Tall Tale was futile as well, and even scuttling our ship was not an option. Well, if we can't scuttle the recommended way, we just have to do it the old-fashioned way instead. But as the fire-induced damage filled our ship with water, I felt myself stuck. What the? This was anything but a good start to our attempt of making boatloads of money, but at least we were back on track to leave this place in favor of an actually populated server. I wasn't entirely convinced that this cursed vessel would survive returning to the Sea of Thieves, so I loaded our supplies into a crate as Birdie began bucketing invisible water. Thankfully, we did eventually get to see the sky again, but even after this detour, Brandon had still not logged in. I think you know what happened next. Of course, we went right back into it for another supply run. Oh yeah, did I mention that this episode took place during a Gold and Glory weekend? You know, the celebration that famously doubles the value of any item you sell as such vastly decreasing server stability due to the sheer amount of players beginning to stack copious amounts of loot. I think that's worth mentioning, because the exact same bug happened again. Now that's interesting. We go from never experiencing this in the weeks we have been using this trick, just for it to happen twice in a row? That's a bit sus. But of course we have already figured out how to get ourselves out of this last time. Surely we're gonna go back home now, right? Birdie? Birdie, we're gonna go home, right? Birdie? Birdie, are we gonna go home? Birdie? Birdie, what is happening, Birdie? Needless to say that we did not end up going home. When we got black screened onto the other side of the invisible wall, we decided, you know what? Maybe we don't need supplies after all. Still waiting for Brandon to get his butt out of bed, Birdie and I went to do what has basically become tradition for any event. Say it together, a commodity run.
Woo! Yeah!
Let's go! Okay, maybe going from outpost to buy a bunch of commodities and then sell them later at a profit is not the most exciting thing ever, but it is safe, easy money to kick your grind off with. Brandon eventually blessed us with his presence just in time for some random solo slooper to come our way. I think you can imagine how that ended for them. But that was not the only ship on the server. We spotted a bunch of pirates around, some of which we might want to spare a visit later, but for the time being, we were determined to become the worst oiled machine in history as we went about trying to get through our commodity run. When we began approaching Sanctuary Outpost for the final sell, we couldn't help but lay eyes upon a very interesting vessel, a gold-hoarding emissary sloop using the item of our desire, the Dark Adventurer's sails. At first, it seemed like we scared them off, but as we were unloading our cargo, that fella began circling the island in very suspicious fashion. And what we all thought would happen did eventually happen. They began sneaking up on us. Our first approach with this individual was very strange indeed, because incidentally, they've been wearing the exact same outfit as Birdie. Since we couldn't feel any ill intent, we just went back to selling our cargo, but that's when it dawned on us why they were dressed the way they were.
He's touching.
Bruh.
No, I don't think so.
That sneaky son of a gun cosplaying as one of us to try and sneakily sell our loot. Thankfully, Birdie demonstrated godlike reflexes and took them up before they could steal anything. And I firmly expected this to happen the extent of how far they go to try and mess with us, but boy oh boy was I wrong. Is he actually coming back?
No shot.
Have fun, Brandon.
I killed him on the cannon. I killed him, Cliff.
Brandon, you'll be fine, right?
Yep. He has a chest of rage.
Why would he attack us? Just go to a different outpost. Alas, their stubborn nature meant that no such option was available any longer, and a few short minutes later we had disposed of our foe. When Brandon pointed out that this person had a chest of rage, I thought he did so because that was the only item they had, but little did I know that their entire ship was loaded. Now we could have sold all these items for an easy profit then and there, but instead, the one brain cell that all three of us are sharing formulated a fantastic idea. Instead of selling the loot, we used it to level up a Reaper emissary flag. A little over an hour into our session and we've already made a solid 300,000 gold profit. I mean, it's more like 200,000 for me because I forked up the cash to buy the commodities, but what matters at the end of the day is that Brandon can get those sales. If we wanted to make another 700,000 to reach that goal, we'd have to dream bigger than delivering commodities. Yes, the Reaper emissary flag very obviously marks us for PvP, but being able to sell any loot with a multiplier to the Reapers was very much worth that risk. And after having PvP'd some of the ships on the server, yeah, let's just say I was not very worried about that. With an easy rank 4 thanks to the loot we stole from the cosplayer, we didn't have much more of a ways to go for that maximum multiplier. We spotted a fleet ward event not too far away from us, figuring this was as good a target as any to make that happen. But things just weren't meant to be that easy.
Are we doing the fleet?
4 rank 5. If the fleet wants to show up. Fleet check? No fleet?
How am I supposed to despawn the world event if you don't spawn the world event?
Yeah, seriously, man.
Wait, I know where the fleet is.
Where?
They're stuck in the shadow room.
I mean, that was as good an explanation as I could come up with. Minutes after having triggered the event, there was no ship to be seen, leaving us to fear that yet another bug could be cheesing us out of our rightful cargo. Thankfully, we had nothing better to do but wait, and after a few more minutes, the fleet finally scuttled their way out of the Sea of the Damned onto the mortal plane. Now, I wish I could give you some Class A PvE drama, but a skelly fleet is really not that big of a deal on its own, especially not if you're on a brigantine. The only thing that is worth mentioning is that both the last galleon as well as the flagship had sunk without us even firing at them because we were still busy grabbing the loot.
Wait a minute, did we sink one of them?
Wait, wait, what? Finally, a bug that ended up working in our favor. This is the first time I saw an AI literally die of cringe, but hey, I'll take it. And just in time for a new challenger to bring more loot. Listen, I don't know what's up with all these people deciding to attack us just to inevitably get sunk. Okay, granted, I did get one blunted in the back at one point, but them two manning a brigantine meant that their ship had sunk even faster than the sloop that we fought before. Alright, cool, we had a bunch of loot on our ship now, our emissary flag had long since reached rank 5, and we were ready to go into the endgame. All this petty thievery would pale in comparison to what we had in stock. After offloading our loot for another 200,000 gold at Reapers and selling a few fish and gems for that sweet hunter scroll reputation, we were on the hunt for a specific ship. Not to fight them, mind you, but to ask them for a favor. We shot off a few fireworks as a sign of good faith and narrowly avoided a collision thanks to some very impressive harpoon drifting skill sides of their crew. Once we had their attention, we showed them our collection of ritual skulls and announced that we were about to raid a Fort of the Damned. You know, the thing that you need to collect the different colored flames for? We offered them a split of the profit in exchange for their cooperation, meaning they would kill me so I can get the pink PvP flame from the ferry and agree to just not attack us while we're at the fort so that we can clear it uninterrupted. All in exchange for that sweet 50% alliance payout. Now this is where the real gaming hours began. We had about 20 minutes to collect all the flames, leaving us with an hour to finish the fort itself because we had to be done by then in order to hit Gold Rush Hour. Oh, you thought we'd just take that 2 times multiplier for Golden Glory? There was another 1.25 times multiplier ripe for the taking, meaning the loot hidden within the Fort of the Damned would become even more valuable. So while Birdie and Brandon left to grab the remaining flames we needed to spawn in the event, I took the rowboat and headed towards the closest mermaid treasury I could find. Hey, I told you these are real gaming hours. A quick dive into the depths would allow me to collect a very useful item for our raid, the Disney Sticks. Sorry, I meant the Tridents. Tridents deal increased damage to AI enemies, allowing us to speed run the boss fight at the end, making this detour absolutely worth it. Any item you can stuff into the mermaid statues can be reclaimed above water, and yes, that does include the Disney Sticks. By the time I rowed my way back to the fort, my crewmates were just about done with the setup, and we had just about 60 minutes until Gold Rush began. The Disney Sticks were in position, all the gunpowder barrels were moved to a stash, and we had all the supplies we needed right there in the boss room. At that point, I still was not convinced that we were not gonna get attacked, so I was keeping watch to make sure nobody could sneak onto our ship while we were busy with the raid. The encounter itself is rather unique. You need to shine differently colored flames onto waves and waves of skeletons that come your way in order to be able to attack them. Making sure you coordinate who takes up which color will greatly increase your efficiency in this encounter, and once all the waves are defeated, the final boss will spawn. The funny thing about this is that having 3 people all use Disney Sticks on that one can literally stun lock them into submission. Wanna know how long it took us to take that bad boy down? 1.5 minutes, putting this FOTD run at just about 15 minutes with all the riches belonging to us. With a run that fast, of course we decided to do it again just to really make sure we hit that 500k mark necessary for Brandon to be able to buy the DA sales. Unfortunately, the second run was not quite as smooth as the first one, with the game spawning 4 stronghold gunpowder kegs of varying colors, none of which we wanted to blow up because we didn't want to ignite the gunpowder stash, with the exception of Birdie, who definitely didn't care about that. Why? As we were contemplating that decision of his on the Ferry of the Damned, Birdie swore that he was confident his little Joker moment would not ignite the stash, when all of us know that he just got lucky. Unfortunately, Birdie becomes absolutely insufferable whenever he's right about anything, so I had to do something about that.
Yeah, I
will not be wrong about this. I will not be wrong about this.
Tells me he's
Oh no,
there.
the stash exploded. How did this happen?
As
oh,
he was saying
man.
that.
How did this happen, man? Turns out we really shouldn't have done that, huh?
Cliff, you're
Bad job, Birdie. Bad job.
You're a degenerate, Cliff. I want you to know
Blowing
that.
up the
really
whole
is.
stash. Sadly, that is as much drama as I can provide, because there was in fact no other ship trying to stop us from stacking FOTD. Birdie did eventually get us revenge for all the keg pranks I'd played on him in previous episodes though. After 2 runs, we had comfortably met our deadline with time to spare. A whole bunch of high value loot was ours just in time for the multipliers to do their magic, to the tune of an angry skelly sloop sieging the hideout. And well, these multipliers definitely did not disappoint. Oh my god! Oh my god!
Holy
What? Excuse me? Honestly, I'm really glad that I don't have so much gold that big loot holes like these don't excite me anymore, because what would a pirate game be without the treasure? At the end of our stack, we had made 1.6 million gold for the day, and that's before we converted a bunch of our doubloons for an additional 1.5 million. Brandon could finally afford the legendary Dark Adventure sales, blessing our crew with what is arguably one of the best items in the entire game, which we're probably never gonna end up using because it makes us look like a bunch of sweat lords. If this episode did not have enough PvP for your liking, then what about you check out my episode titled This is PvP in Sea of Thieves, a full day of glorious combat, the card for which you can find on screen right now. But until then, thank you everybody so much for watching. Don't forget to drop me a like on your way out if you enjoyed this video, subscribe if you want to see more, and definitely ring that bell icon to not miss out on my next upload. I hope you guys have a day filled with riches on the sea, and until next time, peace!